Kevin Stefanski's handling of the quarterback situation is no longer a behind-the-scenes debate. It's a full-blown controversy. Reports suggest that even as Sanders proved his leadership and elevated the offense, Stefanski continued prioritizing other options like Dillon Gabriel. This approach, seen by many players as misguided and possibly driven by internal bias, now threatens to undo the very chemistry that's made the offense tick. The evidence? Sanders has played better. The offense is moving cleaner in the locker room.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
Led by voices like Wyatt Teller and Jerry Jeudy, is aligning behind him, not the coaches. When an NFL roster starts questioning the motives of its own leadership, the consequences are far-reaching. This isn't just about choosing the best quarterback. It's about maintaining trust, unity, and momentum. Sanders' progression wasn't supposed to happen under these conditions, yet it has. If leadership continues to resist this shift, they may not just lose a quarterback. They risk losing the locker room. In today's league, that's a mistake few teams can survive. Something is happening inside the Cleveland Browns locker room, and it's no longer staying behind closed doors. In a rare, unscripted wave of player-led support, Shedeur Sanders' teammates are going public, not with vague praise or half-hearted encouragement, but with full-throated backing. One by one, voices from the offense are lining up to say the same thing. This guy has changed everything. His confidence, his energy, his presence, it's contagious. And they want him leading this team. The only problem? The coaching staff still doesn't. And that's where the story turns from impressive to disturbing. Because according to multiple reports and now very clear signals from players themselves, Shedeur's rise has been met with resistance. Not from opponents, not from lack of performance, but from within. Specifically, from head coach Kevin Stefanski and elements of the Browns coaching staff, who are being accused of deliberately sidelining Sanders and pushing other quarterback options instead. The name Dillon Gabriel keeps popping up. An example of someone they wanted to work, even if it meant suppressing the one who actually was. We're not talking about minor disagreements here. This is shaping up to be a full-on power struggle between the locker room and the sideline. And at the heart of it all is Shedeur Sanders. He didn't get the first team reps in training camp. He wasn't handed the keys to the offense. He came into a chaotic, injury-ridden lineup with no real support and still managed to do what others couldn't. Bring the unit together, stabilize the energy, and deliver results that made even the veterans take notice. And take notice they did. Wyatt Teller didn't mince words when he credited Sanders' confidence as a game-changer, not just for Sanders himself, but for the entire offensive line. According to Teller, when the quarterback believes in what he's doing, the players around him feed off of that. It makes the protection cleaner, the communication sharper, the entire operation more locked in. And that kind of boost doesn't come from a playbook. It comes from leadership. Jerry Jeudy backed it up. In his own words, Sanders is settling in faster and getting more consistent every week. And here's the kicker. Jeudy made it clear that Sanders is doing this without the usual developmental support a rookie quarterback would get. He wasn't running with the starters. He wasn't getting that early trust. He wasn't being groomed like a franchise guy. And yet, that's exactly how he's performing. So what gives? If the teammates are this vocal, if the result is this clear, if the leadership is this visible, then why isn't the coaching staff on board? That's where things get ugly. Because this isn't a question of strategy anymore. It's a question of control. According to reports and growing whispers from within the organization, Stefanski and his staff had their plan, and Shedeur Sanders wasn't part of it. They were committed to other quarterbacks, and when Sanders started outperforming expectations, it threatened that plan. So instead of adapting, they buried him, sequestered him, pushed forward their narrative while the locker room watched, waited, and fumed. And now, that quiet frustration is going public. Joe Batonio, one of the most respected voices in the building, didn't just praise Sanders. He made it clear that the team likes him, that they're embracing him. His comments about Luke Whippler and the dynamic on the line weren't just about humor. They were about chemistry, and Sanders is at the center of it. This is no longer about who throws a tighter spiral. This is about who the team is choosing to follow, and they've already made their choice. But here's where it gets even more tense. Sanders knows what's going on. He's not clueless. In his own words, I'm going to make sure I'm around next year. That's not just a personal goal. That's a message. He sees the friction. He feels the resistance. And he's not backing down. That's the kind of mentality you want in a franchise quarterback. But instead of being rewarded for it, he's being treated like an issue, a disruption, something the coaching staff can't control. Which raises the obvious question. What kind of message does that send to the rest of the team? Because when the players speak and the coaches refuse to listen, something cracks. And once that trust is gone, it's hard to fix. This isn't theoretical. We've seen it before. Teams where players rally around one guy while the coaches force another. It rarely ends well. The longer the disconnect goes on, the deeper the divide gets. The offense starts second-guessing. Morale drops. And the guy everyone believed in starts looking elsewhere. And make no mistake, if the Browns lose Shedeur Sanders over this, it won't be because he wasn't ready. It'll be because they chose politics over performance. This is a moment. The locker room has taken its stand, and the staff is out of excuses. The development curve is over. The training camp favoritism is exposed, and the guy they tried to suppress has built his own support system from the ground up. That's not just a quarterback. That's a culture shift. The coaching staff now faces a choice. Double down on their failed strategy and risk the fallout, or get over their own agenda and rally around the quarterback everyone else already has. The longer they wait, the worse it gets. Because while they're hesitating, Sanders is growing. He's proving he can lead in chaos. That he can win respect with actions, not hype. That he can deal with resistance and still walk into the huddle with command. There's no excuse left. The offensive line is backing him. The receivers are praising him. The locker room is unified. This is a kind of rare, authentic player-led movement that teams dream of. If only the coaching staff could get out of its own way. But if they don't, if this drags on, the damage could be irreversible. Because you can't suppress a leader forever. Not when the people on the field know the truth. Not when the guy in question is proving them right every single week. This isn't a QB competition. This is an organizational fork in the road. So where do you stand? Is Shedeur being unfairly held back? Are the Browns sabotaging their own future with outdated coaching politics? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Hit like if you're riding with Sanders, and subscribe for more breakdowns just like this. Because one way or another, this story isn't over. It's only just beginning, and the next chapter could change the future of the Browns for good. The Browns are sitting on a ticking time bomb, and it's not just about play calling or personnel decisions. It's about trust. Shedeur Sanders walked into a fractured offensive unit and did something no one expected. He brought stability, not with speeches, not with hype videos, not with pre-written narratives, but with presence. He stepped in, started delivering, and the team felt it immediately. The chemistry? It clicked. The tempo? Sharper. The vibe? Different. And the players responded in kind, not just by playing harder, but by speaking louder. Wyatt Teller publicly credited Sanders' confidence with elevating the entire offense. That's not small talk. That's a lineman putting his name on a statement the coaching staff refuses to make. Jerry Jeudy went even further, acknowledging how fast Sanders is developing despite being locked out of first-team reps. You don't say that unless you're pointing fingers. It's a shot at the system. A not-so-subtle, this didn't have to take this long. And they're right. 1. Sanders wasn't eased into position. He wasn't protected. He was thrown into chaos with an injury-depleted line, zero institutional support, and a coaching staff that had already made up its mind. He should have floundered. That's what the odds said. Instead, he thrived. Not perfectly, not flawlessly, but in all the right ways. He earned respect. He won over the room. And now, the room is shouting on his behalf, while the coaching staff stays quiet, clinging to a strategy that never actually worked. Because this isn't about wins and losses on a spreadsheet. It's about losing the locker room in real time. And you can see the cracks forming. Joe Batonio's comments, laced with locker room humor, revealed something deeper. These guys are rallying around Sanders in every way, through performance, personality, and protection. The team likes him. Not just professionally, but personally. That matters more than most fans realize. When the guy under center is someone the players want to go to war for, the entire operation changes. The huddle is tighter. The sideline is calmer. The effort gets just a little more urgent. And that kind of chemistry, you can't buy it. You either have it or you don't. Shedeur has it, and the players know it. But here's the issue. While they're making it loud and clear, Kevin Stefanski seems stuck in a loop, refusing to pivot, refusing to fully commit, refusing to acknowledge that Sanders has already surpassed the guys they spent months trying to develop. Why? Because admitting that means admitting the plan was wrong. And let's be honest, NFL coaching staffs are not known for their humility. They double down. They cite process and long-term vision. They protect their narratives. And in this case, the narrative was clear. Sanders wasn't supposed to be the guy. But reality has a way of rewriting expectations. And now Stefanski's staff looks like they're working against their own team. Not because they're saying anything controversial, but because they're saying nothing at all. No public praise. No shifting tone. Just the same stale approach while the players speak louder and louder. That silence is deafening and telling. Because when your roster has to act as a public relations arm for your quarterback, something has gone terribly wrong at the top. Let's talk about that silence from the coaches. Why is it such a big deal? Because football is about signals. Every decision a coach makes sends a message. Who starts? Who gets reps? Who gets praise in the media? And when Sanders is visibly growing, visibly leading, visibly winning over his team, and yet getting no endorsement from the staff, it sends a worst signal possible. We don't care what the locker room sees. We're sticking to our agenda. That's how you lose veterans. That's how you fracture culture. And the worst part? Sanders knows. His comments are carefully worded, but the meaning is crystal clear. I'll make sure I'm around next year. That's not a throwaway line. That's a challenge. It says, even if you're not backing me, I'm backing myself. And that's what scares the staff. Because they're not just dealing with a player, they're dealing with a movement. This isn't one guy grinding quietly in the background. This is a guy who now has the entire offense standing behind him, and the staff on the other side of the line. When players start publicly aligning with one of their own over the coaches, it's no longer just about football. It's a referendum on leadership. And right now, Stefanski's leadership is in question. Not because he didn't see Shedeur's potential at first. That happens. Not every young quarterback explodes right away. But doubling down on that initial misread, even after the team has shifted, even after the results are obvious, that's malpractice. That's letting ego win over evolution. And here's where Brown's front office needs to step in fast. Because if this continues, if the staff keeps undermining what's clearly becoming the team's identity, they're not just risking locker room drama. They're risking long-term damage. Players remember this stuff. They talk. And in a league where unity is everything, it doesn't take much to tear it apart. So what happens if Sanders doesn't get the support he needs? The team suffers. The chemistry dies. And the message becomes, it doesn't matter how hard you work, how well you lead, or how much your teammates believe in you. If you weren't part of the original plan, you're out. That's a recipe for disaster. But it doesn't have to end that way. The organization still has a chance to turn this around. To say, we see it now. To stop the damage and lean into the reality everyone else already accepts. Sanders is a guy, not a placeholder, not a project, not a development piece. The guy, he's earned that, not through hype but through grit, through performance, through leadership that can't be denied. And if the coaching staff won't say it, then the front office better step up and force the issue. Because if they don't, someone else will. Another team, another coach, another opportunity. And the Browns, they'll be left with a mess, with a fractured team, with a wasted opportunity, and with a fan base asking, how did we let this happen? The clock is ticking. What's happening in Cleveland right now isn't just a quarterback controversy. It's a full-blown identity crisis. And the longer the Browns try to play it off as business as usual, the more transparent it becomes that this is anything but normal. Let's start with the basics. The locker room has chosen its leader. It wasn't a press release. It wasn't an organizational rollout. It wasn't some coordinated PR stunt. It was organic. It happened because of what Shedeur Sanders did when no one expected it from him. He showed up, stepped in, and took command. And you can't manufacture that kind of leadership. You can't coach it. You can't fake it. And most importantly, you can't suppress it when the team already sees it. But that's exactly what the Browns coaching staff is trying to do. Despite the praise from Wyatt Teller, despite the vocal support from Jerry Jeudy, despite the camaraderie and validation from Joe Bitonio, despite the offense looking and feeling noticeably more cohesive when Sanders is under center, despite all of that, the coaching staff is clinging to a decision they made months ago, a decision that no longer reflects the reality on the field. They're still trying to push other quarterbacks, still stuck on the idea that someone like Dylan Gabriel was the safer bet, still pretending that Shedeur Sanders is an unknown quantity. At this point, it's delusional, because Sanders is no longer a project. He's no longer a what-if. He's here, and the players are treating him like the guy, like the one who makes them better, the one who commands a huddle, the one who can actually lead this team into a future that, for once, doesn't feel like a constant rebuild. Segment. But here's the problem. It's one thing for a coaching staff to overlook a player early in the season. It's another thing entirely to double down when everyone else in the building has moved on from that mistake. That's not just stubbornness. That's a power play. And it's happening at the expense of a locker room that has already made its decision. A locker room that is now not only supporting its quarterback, but actively fighting for him, publicly, repeatedly, with zero fear of how the staff might take it. That tells you everything. Because veterans don't stick their necks out for just anyone. In a league where careers are short and reputations matter, speaking up like this means something. It means they've seen enough. It means they've had enough. And it means they're willing to risk their own standing to make the situation impossible to ignore. And what's Kevin Stefanski doing in response? Nothing. Or worse, pretending it's not happening. No shift in tone. No public support. No recognition of the obvious. Just the same empty football talk. And the more the players speak out, the more exposed the silence from the coaching staff becomes. It's like watching a tug-of-war where one side is pulling with everything they've got, and the other side is refusing to even grab the rope. And honestly, it's exhausting. Not just for fans, but for the players who've been grinding all year under tough conditions. Injuries, rotation, line issues, yet still, they found stability in Sanders. And now they're watching their own coaches try to push that aside in favor of a narrative that no longer holds water. You can only do that for so long before it breaks something. And make no mistake, it's already starting to break. The trust between players and coaches? Cracking. The morale in the locker room? Under pressure. The future of Shedeur Sanders in Cleveland? Very uncertain, through no fault of his own. Because let's be clear, he's done everything right. He didn't come in with demands. He didn't throw tantrums. He didn't leak frustrations to the media. He kept his head down, worked, improved, and let the results speak for themselves. And even now, when the support is clearly swelling, he's still being measured, still being mature. His only public statement on the issue, "I'll make sure I'm around next year." Let's break that down for a second. That's not just a declaration of intent. That's a quiet challenge. It's Shedeur saying, I know what's happening. I see what's going on. But I'm not backing down. That's the exact kind of mentality you want in your franchise quarterback. Someone who leads through storms, not just sunny days. Someone who can navigate tension, resist politics, and still deliver. And he's being punished for it. Not openly, not directly, but through omission, through silence, through being passed over week after week by a staff that clearly had other plans and refuses to admit those plans no longer apply. That's not just frustrating. It's dangerous. Because when a coach's loyalty is to a plan instead of the team, it creates a toxic culture. One where performance doesn't matter. One where player leadership is irrelevant. One where doing everything right still gets you nowhere if it wasn't part of the vision. And you think players don't notice that? You think they don't see who's being protected and who's being left to fend for themselves? One, they do. They always do. And that's why this isn't just about Shedeur anymore. It's about every player watching this unfold and wondering what it says about their path, their future, their effort. Because if a guy can show the leadership, maturity, and performance that Sanders has shown and still not get the backing from his coaches, what hope does anyone else have? That's the real cost here. This isn't just about winning or losing games. It's about losing a team. Because every week that the staff pretends this isn't happening, they're not just holding back a quarterback. They're holding back a franchise. A locker room that's finally found someone to rally around. A moment of alignment that so many organizations never get. And if they waste that, good luck getting it back. Because players remember. And so do fans. They remember the guy who had their support, but didn't get the shot. They remember the team that could have built something real, but let it rot in the name of protocol. They remember leadership that didn't lead. And if the Browns let this continue, they're not just mismanaging a quarterback situation. They're sending a message to the entire league that in Cleveland, performance takes a back seat to politics. So let's cut the noise. The locker room has spoken. The players have shown where they stand. The results back it up. And Shedeur Sanders has more than earned the right to be backed fully by the coaching staff. It's not too late to fix this. But every day they wait, the risk grows. And at some point, Shedeur might decide that the support he's already earned isn't worth fighting for in a place that refuses to give it. So what do you think? Are the Browns sabotaging their own future with this refusal to adapt? Should Shedeur already be locked in as the leader of this offense? Drop your thoughts below, like if you're riding with Sanders, and subscribe to keep up as the saga unfolds. Because the way things are going, we haven't seen the last twist in this power struggle, and someone's going to blink. The only question left is, will it be the coaches or the quarterback they can't contain much longer?